Hi, everybody. Welcome to Brilliantly Sexy with Devina Kaur. And today it is my honor to welcome Lindsay Lapaquette on our show. She is a mother to two children who are differently abled. She likes to use the word disability, so we're still figuring that out. And today in our show, we want to bring up the discussion on what it's like to be a mother to children who have ADHD, neurological disorders, as well as mental, I wouldn't say mental health issues. Lindsay, can I call it mental health?
Definitely mental health issues. Yeah.
Thank you. Mental health issues. And I just want to open the platform for that conversation because it is so important that we bring out what the struggles that we go through as parents, as human beings, and how we can change that and how we can, as a community, we can then impact people around us. So those of you who are new to our show, we are all about raising human consciousness, and I'm so grateful that you're here and that we are joined by Lindsay. Lindsay, thank you and welcome. So please start off a little bit by telling us about yourself and what you do, how old your children are, and how do you manage everything that you go through as a family with children who are differently abled.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. And I think a lot of my personal life experiences have kind of fed into what I'm doing now professionally. So I'm a workplace communication expert. And so I work with particularly middle managers who want to improve communication in their teams so they can inspire their teams to lead them to greatness. And I used to be a speech language pathologist. So I spent a lot of my career, I've worked in the area of communication since I graduated from my master's, but worked primarily with children with disabilities and diagnoses like the ones my kids have. And then I came to have children with needs similar to the ones that I had been supporting for years, and just had a real different understanding at that point of what my clients had gone through, about how I maybe hadn't fully heard their requests for help. I was helping, but I realized I wasn't fully listening. I hadn't fully listened or understood their challenges. And that really fed into, I guess, a lot of the work I'm doing supporting leaders to develop better skills to listen and connect with their team.
Thank you. And you guys can find Lindsay Lapaquette on lindsaylapaquette.com. Lindsay, tell us so you've got kids with ADHD. What else do they have? Tell us a little bit more about them, how old they are, please.
Yeah, so we have a 9 and a 10-year-old. They both have fairly severe ADHD. They were diagnosed around 3, which is very young, but the challenges experienced were to the extent that we really needed help. They also both have a psychiatric disorder called disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. And I won't get into too much complication, but it's a psychiatric disorder somewhat similar to bipolar. So there's a lot of emotional regulation challenges. And when they were particularly young, an awful lot of behavior, which has settled somewhat, but has been pervasive.
And the psychiatric disorder, is it genetic? Is it by birth? Can you?
That's a good question.
Can you enlighten us a little bit about that?
So, you'd think I'd know more given that it was my field and it's my kids. My gut is that yes, there are, and I believe the research supports this, there are genetic predispositions that then either show up or don't. There's some work questioning the role of trauma in psychiatric disorders, and it's not well established, I would say, in the literature, but I do question when I look at our family history, for instance, of mental health disorders. It's quite extensive, and that seems too much to be coincidental to me.
Okay, thank you for that. And how is it like being a parent? Do you fit in with, first of all, do your children go to school, or do you homeschool, or is there a special program? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So they went to regular school up until COVID. They're very bright academically. They're able to make friends. They, from an outside view, people don't believe me when I say they have challenges, and they challenge me on it all the time, and they tell me I'm wrong. And so that was a process, learning to manage those types of judgments, frankly, because they weren't often trying to hear what we were experiencing but rather trying to tell me I was wrong without trying to understand. And now I've forgotten your question. I apologize.
That's the ADD brain for you.
Totally. Apples don't fall that far from the tree, right?
It's so true. Well, I can't remember that question, but my question was, do they go to regular school?
Oh, school. Right.
And then how do you help them function? Any special needs means what? Because that term is so broad, and we don't often understand it, and it's something that we don't talk about. That's why we're here discussing this, and we can only change the system when we start looking within and we start having open dialogue and discussion.
Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of part of my journey through this, is that at first I sort of looked outward for help, right? We did occupational therapy, and we saw psychology, and we saw speech therapy, and we saw therapy. Well, not to knock therapy, it was very helpful. However, there came a point where I started to realize, we feed into this as parents too. There's the diagnosis, but then you've got the everyday dynamics, right? And I had to start looking at what I was contributing and learning skills to calm myself. So, when your child is having an absolute meltdown over like a drop of oatmeal on their face, let's say, I'm talking when they were littler, because they're very sensitive to touch, and that could blow out into a 40-minute tantrum, right? And people around you would say, well, you just need to be tougher and you just need to put them in their room. But the reality was that they didn't have the skills to manage the situation differently. But then I would get really frustrated because maybe I was running out the door to work and I was stressed about being late. And so then I would feed into it by being impatient and not being empathetic. And I had to learn to sort of step back and connect with them first to de-escalate. And then we can address skill building. And that's one of the things I try to do with teams now, right? Is have their leaders learn to connect first. And then if, for instance, performance issues, then you have the person's trust where they're going to listen to the advice you give them, and we skip that, I find, whether with kids or in business or with friends,
Yeah, Lindsay, that's beautifully said, like, especially with everything going on. Now more than ever, we see how much we need human connection to survive, to thrive. And like now we're talking, like the reason we're doing this live is because this is such an important topic with mental health and suicide rates. It's such a high, and all of us feeling it. Our teenagers are feeling it. Like older people are feeling it too, because
Did you just call me an older person?
I'm just kidding. No. Just me, honey, not you. But and this is what it is. Like earlier today, we did a show about laughter and joy with Dr. Joanne White, and this is also the other part of being here, where we're like talking and sharing our experiences. So Lindsay, earlier today you told me that your son has a service dog. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? And does that?
Oh God, it's been so helpful. So he desperately, he's animals are, have been his thing a very long time.
But hold on, before we go there, I want to know, what else does your son have?
Yes. So he also has a coordination disorder, which basically means that learning new movements with his body is hard. So fine motor is hard, like when learning to walk at the park or to climb up park equipment was really hard. And, but again, he doesn't look physically disabled when you look at him. So he's clumsy and, so
the service dog, what's the job of the service dog?
So it's really for emotional support. I say emotional support. It's not an emotional support dog. It's a Mira dog, a service dog for those who are in Quebec. But it brings that emotional support. It calms him. And so he wanted one for years, and it was a 4-year wait list to get one. And by the time we got to the end of the 4 years, things were fairly easier. And I don't really like dogs. So my husband and I were like, let's just say we don't want it. Let's just move on. And our son wanted it so much, we decided, okay, we're just going to buy in. And wow, it has brought such a level of like emotional stability, I would say, to the family. That I'm so glad that we let him. We listened to him.
Okay, I personally don't know anybody else who has a service dog. I'm curious and I'm a dog person. I'm a cat person. I used to be a former dog walker. So full-time dog walker. So I want to know a little bit about what does it mean, a service dog? Are you, example, does the dog have a master? Does he get regular exercise? Does the dog go to school with your son? Give me more about that, please.
Sure. So it's been trained by Mira for 2 full years before they're in a foster family who trains it. So there's volunteers who offer to train this dog knowing they're going to have it taken away at the end of a year, which is a pretty big thing, I think, for families to offer. And then it trains at Mira. And at the end of the 2 years, then my husband's the master. My husband and son both went to Mira. My husband went for a week, and then my son went for the last, I think, 2 days. And they go under full-time training on how to make sure the dog is following all the expectations and rules, because you have to keep it trained so that, for instance, you can't just let it eat something off the floor, because it needs to be able to sit in a restaurant, or at least pre-COVID, to be able to sit in a restaurant and not eat food, right? Or it needs to be able to go to school with my son in a cafeteria in high school and not eat food. So they teach you all the really strict rules that you got to follow to keep it.
So does your daughter have access to the dog? Are you allowed to pet the dog at home?
So that's been a bit of a messy situation, because she also has a disability, right? And she also has the needs, but it is our son's dog. So it needs to respond to our son more than our daughter, which was tricky first off, but our daughter understood. And now that the dog's kind of more attached to our son, yes, we can all pet her, but we have to be careful that we don't overtake the dog's role for our son, I guess.
Thank you so much. That's so important. Any support that you can have while you're going through this. And I mean, is this for your son and your daughter, the disability, the ADHD, is it going to get better with age? Do they take medication?
Yeah. So I think every person's path is very variable. Like, I've worked with children and adults with similar diagnoses in my past career. And so I've seen situations where it has gotten much worse over time, and I've seen situations where it's gotten a lot better. And I think there's variable factors that contribute to that. And so for our kids, they had early support. We're middle class. We were able to afford therapy because there's not very much available in the public sector. I feel very privileged that I was in a similar field, so I kind of knew a lot of the tricks of how to implement. And I kept thinking, wow, if I'm having such a hard time being heard in this system, what are parents doing who are not used to advocating for themselves, don't have the education to know, like I understood when they would tell me a decision that made no sense clinically for my children. I knew it because of my background, and I would argue it. So it always, again, getting back to my work, it gave me that experience of being like really having to advocate hard, and seeing how when I had been the professional in the room, I was respected. People would turn to me for my opinion. They'd listen. And then when I was the mom with the same needs, I wasn't heard. And it started to make me realize what it felt like to be not treated equally, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry that you went through that. And, as a result, that's perhaps what's led you to the work you're doing as a communication expert. So Lindsay, what, with the whole thing in the family, what's the best way to communicate to your children with special needs? And what advice do you have for other parents who are tuning in right now?
Yeah. So I can't say there's one best way to communicate with your kids, because I think anyone who has at least, more than one child knows that what works with one kid, you think you have it all figured out, and then you have a second and you realize you don't know what you're doing any more than before you had no kids. And so for me, it's really about trying to understand what the other person needs, right? Because my kids are very different. Trying to understand where, where are my needs, and where are those conflicting, and how can we connect in a way that meets both of our needs. And I think, again, getting back to workplace, right? That's a lot of that tension in a workplace of what a boss needs, what a team can handle. How do we negotiate that in a way that works for everyone, which doesn't mean giving up your needs. And I find it's a skill that's hard. It's really hard.
That's and communication, whether that's relationships, whether that's business relationships, whether that is mom to child, we're always learning about that. And I know it's personally with my ADD brain, with English being my second language, I get stuck. It's like I get stuck in my throat chakra, and I'm like, why can't I express what I'm feeling? And it's hard. And you have to go back to yourself, connect to your, divine self, and say, what is it that I need, and how can I get what I want? That's what it comes down to. Whether
Absolutely.
you are, and of course, with even with children with special needs, do you think it's true that they're all, well, we're all divine beings having a human experience? So is there a way that you communicate that's, give me one concrete example.
Well, so I think what it has taught me is to slow down, right? And so in those moments when I'm not going to say I do this perfectly, because come on, I'm human, but I've gotten a lot better at it. And so in those moments where everyone's freaking out and I'm really stressed, to take a moment and, reach out, let's say to my daughter, and be like, hey, come on over here, and like sit on my lap and be like, so what's up? You seem upset, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of, listen, it's time for school. We need to get going. Like, that's my nature, is move past the emotions, forget about them. Let's just get on to what we need to do, which isn't super healthy. It's taught me to slow down and connect with the emotion.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. And Lindsay, is there any other experience that you can share with parents who are watching? And we're getting a lot of comments. So anything else that we've missed that may be helpful to our audience, please share that.
Yeah. And, I think one of the biggest things that's been helpful to me is trying to learn to be compassionate towards the moments when I'm not being the person that I would like to be, the parent I would like to be, the team member I would like to be, the boss that I would like to be. Because the reality, I have moments where I think, oh my God, if I was like famous and had paparazzi following me, they'd be like, communication expert yelling at her children, like not implementing what she teaches people. But the reality is, right, we all have moments when it's just too much. And so it's a balance between, when you can be compassionate towards those moments when you're not showing up as the person you would like to be showing up as, but staying open to the growth of next time trying better, differently. I think that's where you get growth over time instead of getting stuck.
I love that, because, compassion is such a big word. And those of you who may not know this, Sexy Brilliant nonprofit foundation happened because of me overcoming an addiction. And we can only do that through self-awareness, knowing who you are, and then saying, I forgive myself for all those things that I've done that have not served my higher self. So, Lindsay, I want to say thanks. Self-forgiveness. Yeah. Is that something that
resonates with me a lot, right? Yeah. And beating yourself up over it, forgiving yourself and moving forward. Yeah.
And thank you, Lindsay. We're coming to the end of the show, and at every show we pull messages, divine messages, the Sexy Brilliant cards. Wait.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah, the Sexy Brilliant cards. And I want you to, so we've got about 54 cards. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 3, please.
1 and 3?
1 and 3. Because if I start counting the cards on camera, it's going to take forever. And
it's true, eh?
Yeah. And by the way, these cards.
So I'll pick 3.
Oh, 3.
I thought you said 1 and 3. Oh, 30.
No, between 1 and 3. So let's do 1, 2, and 3. And I didn't tell you this, but they're a little bit X-rated. So I hope your kids are not watching this show.
They're not here.
Oh my goodness. Is that ever a message or what? It says brilliant abilities. Do you see it?
I see brilliant abilities. I can't quite tell what the image is.
I'm going to read it. So this is beautiful and so perfect for the conversation that we're having. I swear I didn't pick this. You did, Lindsay.
Divine intervention.
Divine intervention. So it says brilliant abilities. Excuse me. We are all born gifted with special skills. It takes self-awareness to find them. Often we discover them on our own, but sometimes it takes our angels, guides, and mentors to help us explore our talents. Work with these gifts, be mindful, and celebrate your sexy, brilliant abilities and keep seeking new ones.
Wow, that was powerful.
I'm telling you, like,
Wow.
this is the perfect card because exactly the message that we need.
Yeah.
So to all the parents out there, maybe you're a new parent and you're struggling with this. Know that each of us is gifted in our own way. And it comes from self-awareness. When we're more compassionate, as you said, Lindsay, that's when the growth happens. And we choose to come here in this form and with all of the experiences. So be mindful and celebrate the sexy, brilliant abilities and keep seeking new ones. Lindsay is a communication expert, and Lindsay, you can find her on lindsaylapaquette.com. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If this video was helpful, we want to say thank you for watching and sharing. Pay it forward. And wow, Lindsay, any last words?
No, thank you. I really appreciate your time and everyone watching. And I'm definitely more active on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect with me there, I'd love to say hi. So thank you.
And in the show notes, you're going to find Lindsay's contact information. Please connect with her on LinkedIn. Tell her I sent you, and share this video. And we are a registered nonprofit foundation, sexybrilliant.org. And you can check us out, check our merch. We've got the Sexy Brilliant cards. We've got lots of free blogs, we've got personal development courses, as well as my first book, Too Fat, Too Loud, Too Ambitious. That is a spiritual self-help workbook. So all proceeds, all donations help serve the Sexy Brilliant Nonprofit Foundation. And I want to personally thank you for being part of my Sexy Brilliant community. And thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Please share this video. Please like this video and pay it forward. And that's how we change our karmic debt and pay off everything that we're here